Let's talk to Professor David Paton, who's a former HMRC advisor on the subject of Britain not working. It says on the front page of the Times this morning, Keir Starmer reveals a plan to beat long-term sickness. But the trouble is, I've also read that he's kind of shying away from it slightly. He's basically trying to get people back to work, but we're talking about 9 million people who are now economically inactive. Not all of them are unemployed, not all of them are people that could be working, but around about 4 million, we believe, in the near future are going to be people who are off long-term sick. Let's have a look at what Liz Kendall had to say at the weekend on what she's planning to do to reform the benefit system.
We need to look at the system of benefits and reform or replace the work capability assessment, because it's not working. It's not working for the people who depend on it, and it's not working for the taxpayer either.
I just want to be really clear on what you will do, because the plans that you inherited from the former government would mean that more than 400,000 people would be denied maybe as much as £400 a month. You want to make that saving. You want to get the money out of the system.
We will deliver those savings, but we will bring forward our own reforms. You'll hear more about this when we launch our white paper on Tuesday.
So they launched their white paper on Tuesday. That would be today. We're going to find out precisely how they're going to try and get the people who are off work, sick, long-term, back to work. Let's find out from Professor David Paton precisely how he thinks they're going to do it. Professor David, very good morning to you.
Good morning. Good to be with you, Mike.
Not at all. Very nice to see you. It is a problem, this, isn't it? I mean, every government seems to try to sort of, you know, radicalise welfare, try to make it work better for everybody. But with every year that passes, we seem to end up with more people on welfare than not. I mean, are they able to, and do you believe that they will be able to kind of reform the long-term sickness problem?
Yeah, it's one of the really big structural problems facing the UK economy, the other one being the sort of high energy prices.
Yeah.
But it's costing the economy perhaps £90 billion per year, which is a huge chunk of public expenditure. But also having sort of nearly 3 million on long-term sick and health benefits also means we're losing money from the exchequer and money going into the economy. So it is a really big problem. It's increased over the past sort of 5 or so years by about 1 million.
Yeah.
We've also got the problem of 1 million young people not in work, education and training. So, yeah, the problem is real. As you say, the question is whether the government measures will really tackle it. So they're looking to improve mental health services. Well, yes, that is a big problem with young people not being able to work because of mental health problems. We can talk about what the cause of that might be. The other issue, they're trying to pour a lot of money into revamping job centres, renaming them and so on. Yeah. Well, you know, maybe that will help at the margin. We'll have to see. The big issue, though, is improving the incentives for people to get back into work. There is a genuine issue. There may be an issue in terms of the stick, but there's also an issue in terms of the carrot, because at the moment when somebody's on health benefits and is trying to work part-time, they can lose a huge amount of those benefits, and it can make working not worthwhile. So that's an issue which I think the government could tackle. The problem is you can get universal credit, you can lose a lot of that universal credit when you go back into work, but you can also be reassessed when you start working, so you lose the health element of your benefits. So, you know, there are some things the government can do. I think there's a lot of scepticism whether they can achieve their target of 2 million more people back into work.
I mean, isn't part of the problem that it's actually easier to be off work? It's easier to get benefits not to work, and the rewards for going back to work are not really good enough. So you can either raise the awards for going back to work and say, you know, we'll pay you more money, you'll be better off and all the rest of it. But at the moment, a lot of people would say to me, well, actually, I'm not better off going back to work because I'll lose all sorts of allowances, I won't get my council tax paid anymore, I'll have to pay my own rent, and by the time I've actually added up what I'm going to be earning, I'm not going to be actually better off. In fact, I'm going to be worse off. And so that's part of the problem, it seems to me.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So for some people on health benefit, for example, they may have a marginal tax rate of roughly 80%. In other words, if they earn £1 of income, they could lose benefits of about 80%. That does depend on the assessments they have and losing the health element of the assessment. So that's a real issue, getting that sort of marginal rates. So obviously we want to make sure that people who are in genuine need of support and help get that support, but we do want to make it worthwhile to go back into work when you can. So there is a big issue there. The other side of it, of course, one of the things the government is looking to do is to improve, get apprentices back on track to really improve the number of young people going into apprenticeships, which I think is a very sensible aim. Part of the problem, though, at the time, they're making things more expensive for employers by increasing national insurance and the budget. The other week, that makes it slightly more difficult for employers to offer these opportunities for young people. So we do need perhaps a little bit more joined up thinking in terms of helping both businesses get people back into work, but also giving the incentives to people to want and to make it worthwhile for them to be in work.
And also, of course, we've got a slightly different capability now in terms of understanding what people might be suffering from. You know, there's an awful lot of doctors that I know, and one particular doctor that we speak to on this show, who says to me, you know, if somebody sends me an email and says, I don't feel like working this week, can you sign me off, please? He'll just do it. He won't meet them, he won't talk to them, he won't diagnose them, he won't have a meeting, he won't physically see them, he'll just sign them off for a week. And it seems to me that it's very easy now to sort of go, actually, I don't want to come to work because I'm feeling anxious or whatever, and for whatever reason that is, there's an awful lot more of that than there used to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's two elements to the sickness problem, though. One is sort of people off work on short term, and that's quite a small proportion of that 3 million. There's about 2.8 million people who are not working, economically inactive because of long-term sick problems. So these aren't people who are sort of in work and taking a day off or taking some time off for that reason. So I'm not saying that's not a problem, but the deeper issue is this long-term people on sick leave. And of course, once you've been off work for a long time, it's not just the incentives to get back in. It can be very difficult to get back in.
No, well, that's it. But one thing leads to another. You know, you start off taking a day off, then you have a week off, then you have a month off, then suddenly you've had 3 months off. Liz Kendall herself on Sunday, doing the rounds with the various news shows, was saying, you know, it's wrong to suggest that people who are off work with long-term sickness can't do any work at all. You know, surely even if they can't come to an office, there's something they can do.
Yeah, so I think that may be the case, and I think there's lots of things they can do. So, for example, at the moment, some benefits will be lost. Once you work over 16 hours per week, you may lose a whole chunk of benefits. It depends whether you're on universal credit or other benefits. And that sort of cliff edge, I think, is something, governments really can do to tackle it. That doesn't sort out the underlying problem of why there are so many people long-term sick, and there we go back to sort of what happened with, there was a structural change after COVID through lockdowns and people being isolated and sort of disengaging with the workplace. So there are these structural problems which are going to take some time to address. But I think there are some things the government can do. They have this target of getting 2 million more people back into work. I think there's some scepticism that will happen through revamping job centres and so on. You really need to get those get the incentive so that people are worthwhile working, and then you can have this sort of win-win situation where you can save money on benefits, but also get people contributing to the economy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to talk to you. Professor David Paton there, thank you very much indeed, former HMRC advisor. What is wrong with the nation of Britain? Why is it so sick? Why is people so easy to persuade to say that they can't come to work because they're feeling anxious, because they're feeling unwell, because they're long-term sick? I mean, I don't get it. I'd love for somebody to come on and just explain to me how you're so anxious that you can't do work. How does that work? I don't understand it. How can you be so anxious that you can't get out of the house, get on a bus, stroke train, stroke car, stroke scooter, stroke moped, and go and do a job of work for a while? And if you can't, why can't you do it from home without even leaving the house? How are you not able to do any work? That's what I'd like to know.